Okay, you got your brand new RV, you've got everything that you need to go out for your first camping trip, including your power cable. And all you need now is pack the fridge, put your clothes in, and away you go, and you're set. Maybe not. Let's talk a little bit about power and what you really need for power when you're out camping. Let's start with what came with your RV. So with my RV, it requires 50 amp power. It came with this massive cable to deliver 50 amp power from the RV utility post to my RV. Why does it need 50 amp? That's simple. It has 2 air conditioners and it requires that much power to run both those air conditioners and everything else in the RV. Now let's go look at a different RV. Okay, so here's another RV. This is a smaller RV than the one that we have, and this has a 30 amp connector. Why does it have a 30 amp connector? It has 1 air conditioner, and that's what it needs to power, so 30 amp is sufficient for that. So the power cord is stored here. It's a smaller power cord, as you can see. It's got a 3-pronged circular adapter, and this goes into the 30 amp receptacle at the utility post in your RV park. So who am I? My name's Paul. My wife is Heather. We've been RVing for many, many, many years. We absolutely love it. We've had most types of RVs that you can have. We've had Class A diesel pushers. We've down to teardrops. We've had 5th wheels. We've got our Airstream currently, which we absolutely love. We've had old. We've had new. We've really learned our lessons on how to be prepared for power. With that, let's go see what you're going to find in an RV park. We're at Munns Park RV Resort near Flagstaff, Arizona, and I wanted to show you a typical RV utility post. In fact, this is probably the nicest one I've ever seen before. And in this post, you're going to typically see 3 different types of power receptacles. You're going to see a 50 amp power receptacle, and it's 4-pronged, and it's going to have a breaker that says 50 amp. You're going to see a 30 amp receptacle. It has its accompanying 30 amp breaker, and then you're going to see your typical household utility. It's either going to be a 20 amp breaker or it's going to be a 50 amp breaker. So depending on your RV that you have, you're either going to plug into the 4-pronged 50 amp, the 30 amp, and if you want to, and you're just going to need light power, you can plug into this 50 or this 20 and 50 amp receptacle. Now, when you get into this, first thing you want to check out is make sure the breakers are turned off, that they are down. Then what I like to do is, rather than plug in my RV power cord directly into this post, I like to use a surge protector. And that's what this looks like. I use it for 2 different reasons. First off, it is going to test whether the power coming out of this post is in good condition and is safe. And then it's going to protect me from surges. So in case there's a lightning storm around or something like that, I'm going to have some level of protection for that. So what you do is you plug it in. You're going to turn your 50 amp breaker on in this case, and it's going to have some LED lights, and it's going to show me that I've got good, clean power. In this case, they've got this post turned off, so you're not going to see these lights come on the way they're supposed to, but typically you will see those. So when I'm done with power and I'm ready to leave, I simply turn the breaker off, I pull the cord away, and I'm ready to go. So depending on the RV park that you're at, you may find out that you need different types of connections than what your RV comes with. So let's talk about that. So for my RV, again, I've got my 50 amp connector. Let's plug that in, which has this 4-pronged 50 amp plug that I'm going to plug into the utility post. What if that doesn't have a 50 amp plug? What am I going to do? Well, there's this adapter, and this is called a dogbone for slang, for camping slang. And this is going to allow me to go from 50 amp to a 30 amp receptacle if that's what the RV park has. I simply snap it in on this end, and I plug this into the 30 amp receptacle. Now, let's say the 30 amp receptacle is not working for some reason. I have to go to 15 or 20 amp. That's what this adapter is used for, this dogbone. So this allows me to go from 30 amp now down to 15 amp, which allows me to plug into a 15 amp connector outlet at an RV park, or even into my house, since that's what I have available at my house. So I've gone from my 50 amp plug down to a 20 or 15 amp connector that I can use at my house or literally anywhere. Also, I want you to keep in mind too, that if you've gone all the way down to a 20 or 15 amp circuit, you can't run your air conditioner. You can't run a single air conditioner on this. It will draw too much power. So this is to be used for running the electronics in your RV, your refrigerator, small appliances only. All right, now let me show you how all this connects in with the generator. All right, now that we've talked about dog bones, I want to talk a little bit about how do we hook up our RV to our generator in case we don't have a power post, an RV park utility post to hook up to. So this is the generator that I use. This is probably a little bit bigger than most people are going to use. I chose this one because I want to be able to run my air conditioners without any problem. So this one will deliver about 5,000 watts of power at startup time, and then during normal running use, it'll deliver around 37 to 3,800 watts, which is plenty of power to run an air conditioner along with appliances and things like that that I may want to run. So okay, now how do we hook up our power cords to this generator? Most generators, RV type generators, are going to have two types of sockets with them. They're going to have your 30 amp socket, much exactly like we saw over with the RV park utility post, and it's also going to have your household looking socket for 20 amp power. So this is from my RV, here is my 50 amp power connector. I am going to need to use a dog bone so that it allows me to connect to my 30 amp power connector on my generator. So I've got it plugged in, I run the other end to my RV, I start it up, and I am ready to go with power. So now let's say I don't want to pull out, I'm not going to run my ACs, I just want a little bit of lightweight power, maybe enough to run my electronics, or maybe, my refrigerator, or maybe a small kitchen appliance, that type of thing. I've got a setup where I can use a much smaller cable that's a lot easier to work with by using a variety of different dog bones. I made this dog bone up that has a regular extension cord, home utility type of connector on one end, and it connects into my 50 amp power connector on my RV. I use a standard Home Depot type of extension cord. Make sure to use a 12 gauge wire extension cord. You don't want to use anything lighter than that, like a 14 or 16 gauge. I highly recommend using a 12 gauge only extension cord. So I just plug this end into the extension cord. This end goes into my RV, and then this end goes into the 20 amp socket on the generator. Simple as that, I've got power. Now, why did I choose such a big generator? As I mentioned earlier, I want to be able to run ACs. This specific generator has a couple other features that I really like. Number one, it's got a display panel on it, and it will tell me exactly how much power I am consuming with my RV at any one time. I really like that feature. The other thing that I like a lot about this generator, it's got a built-in surge protector, so I don't need to use a surge protector that I had to use over at the RV park at the utility post. And then third, this one, believe it or not, for the size, it runs fairly quiet. Let me start it up for you. Oh, by the way, the electronic start is very, very nice. So let me demonstrate that. Boom, it's fired up, runs fairly quietly. And also because this one has a large wattage capacity, even under load running one air conditioner, it runs very quiet. So let me shut that down, and so that's how I use my generator. And by the way, I will give links to all these different dog bone connectors that I use, the surge protector. I'll put those in the links in the description of this. So again, we're Paul and Heather, and thank you for joining us on the Freedom Strategy. I hope this video was helpful in helping you understand the basics of power connections for your RV. And if you thought it was helpful, please go ahead and subscribe. And also, I want to let you know that along with traveling in our RV for months and months at a time, we also then spend the winter traveling around the globe, and that can be via cruise lines or simply on rail or whatever we decide we want to do to go from country to country to country. So we travel full time. We absolutely love it, and I hope you'll join us on our journey.